All righty, everybody. Welcome to the Cash Flow Empire podcast. Today's special guest is Michael Roeder, and out of Minnesota is what I saw. Correct, Michael?
You got it.
God, it's pretty cold out there, huh?
It has been. It's finally warming up. I think it hit 50 degrees today, so we're happy campers up
Man,
here.
are you a Vikings? Are you a Vikings fan by any chance?
I am, but it's tough to be a fan of the Vikings. I'll tell you that much.
Just like it's tough to be a Dallas Cowboy fan, man.
I know.
My God. So anyways, guys, you already know what the deal is. We do this podcast every single Tuesday. We have not missed a Tuesday since the beginning of the year, just to try to bring as much value to the community as possible. One of the cool things about Michael is that he's got some properties in Dallas, here where we're from, and I've actually toured one of his properties, and the opportunity of growth that they got on their properties that they get, they're amazing. So Michael, just a little more about yourself. Who's Michael? Like, let us know who Michael Roeder is, and how'd you get into the whole multifamily industry?
Sounds great, and thanks, for having me on tonight. I really appreciate it. Appreciate everyone, tuning in tonight and spending time out of your evening. So a little bit about myself. I grew up in central Minnesota, and I got hit by the real estate bug with single family rentals back in 2008. I was pretty young. I was, in my teens. I bought my first house with my girlfriend. She's now been my wife for about 14 years. And we house hacked that house. So we rented out 3 of the 4 bedrooms. We lived in the 4th bedroom, loved the cash flow, loved what it was doing for us. And so we started to accumulate single family rental properties. Now, it was great, but at the same time, it created an issue for us. It basically added another job to my plate. So I would get home from my corporate job. The last thing I wanted to do is drive an hour to our single family rentals and do the maintenance and do the leasing and do the evictions. And that's what I was doing, so that way they could cash flow. We did pretty well on those single family rentals, but fast forward to today, all we do is pretty much 90 plus unit apartment complexes. And oh my gosh, I mean, the difference has been incredible. The economies of scale, risk mitigation, being able to buy in better markets. It's been absolutely phenomenal for us. So we're at about 2,500 units now under management. We've been full cycle on quite a few deals as well. We focus on Nashville and Dallas-Fort Worth. Those are the 2 markets that we're really honed in on. And, we've been able to build out our in-house team over the last couple of years, which has been a lot of fun. And before I got into real estate, I was a high net worth insurance producer. So doing insurance sales, personal lines insurance, had a lot of fun with that, but I'm glad to say that I'm doing this full time now.
Wow, that's so interesting, because I did read on your bio that you were, for the 500 companies. You were a risk mitigation officer for them. And what I wanted to ask you is, how did you make the leap, and how do you implement the risk mitigation factor into this business now? Because I read that is ingrained in you. So how do you go about that?
Yep. So making the leap, it was a slow transition. I started real estate investing, 15 years ago, multifamily about 7 years ago. And so I was building up my portfolio, and luckily I had a position where I could tier down my hours. So the last 2 years, I was probably working 10 to 15 hours a week on the insurance gig. And then the rest of my time went, towards the multifamily business. So very, very lucky in that capacity. And, I learned a lot in the insurance industry. Like you said, I was involved heavily in risk mitigation, especially for high net worth clients. So I'm very used to, reading through insurance contracts, making sure that you're taking a look at every single avenue to mitigate risk. And so that's flooded over, into our multifamily business, where, I'm always certain that we have the best insurance policies in place for our properties. But not only that, underwriting and taking a look at properties, I think it flows through all of those aspects of our business as well. And, I like to think that we're pretty dang conservative on all of our projects because of that.
Wonderful. So are you too conservative, or can you play around sometimes? Or it just depends on the market?
I think I started out too conservative, and we had a really tough time landing projects, and we were able to make some modifications, get comfortable with certain markets and certain submarkets and properties. So now I don't think that I'm overly conservative, because if you are, you're just never going to win a property these days. So I think we have the right mix.
Nice. That's really, really good. So we do have, just so you know, Michael, we have people who watch our podcast and the people that come here live. There's a lot of people from different communities. So like 10Xers, there's some rockers, there's some from multifamily mindset. Well, Tyler Devereaux, I can't say his last name, but there's a lot of people that kind of like, they're getting into this industry. They're trying to learn. They're trying to find their superpower. A lot of them are saying I'm an underwriter. A lot of them are saying they're good with investor relations. So as far as the underwriting side of things, you said something very important. I think we all start because we get kind of nervous and scared underwriting at first, because what are your thoughts on underwriting conservatively? Like, what are some things that were you doing then that you're not doing now, where you're like, you know what, I can fluff this up, or you know what, I'm going a little too aggressive here?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, one of the things that we did when we first started underwriting properties is we would really amp up the expenses. So say our property management company said, hey, we're really confident that we can hit, $300,000 of expenses per year. We'd bump it up to, $375,000 or $400,000, just because we didn't have the experience. Whereas nowadays, we make sure that we have a hefty budget for expenses, but we know what to underwrite based on what our other properties are doing and what they're experiencing for expenses. And I think that goes for, rent growth, reversion cap rates, your pro forma rents. The more experience that you get, or if you can bring someone on your team that has a lot of experience, you're going to feel much more comfortable, and you're going to be knowledgeable with what numbers to utilize.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And now that you mentioned, the people that are on your team, which we know that is such an important and intricate part of the business. And so can you tell us about what is your criteria for picking those key personnel that are going to help you succeed in this business?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first off, your property management team and your on-site staff are absolutely critical to the success of the property. So what we do is when we vet out a new market, so, when we went into Nashville, we flew into the market, spent about 7 days there, driving the neighborhoods, touring properties. But not only that, we interviewed about 7 management companies. And what we do when we interview management companies is we'll go to their corporate office, we'll meet their staff, we'll take a look at how organized everything is. We'll request their financials so we can see a sample financial set. We'll go drive their properties that they manage, maybe 4 or 5 properties, to see what condition they're in. We'll request referrals. So investors that they manage for, talk to those referrals sources as well. And preferably any management company that we're interviewing, we've already gotten a referral from another investor. So we do a lot of due diligence on the management company. And I think you need to do the same thing for your on-site personnel, especially the on-site manager and the leasing staff. If you can be involved in the interview process, at least when you get down to a couple of people that you're selecting for your property, that's going to speak volumes, and it's going to make a big difference. Because, we've seen a lot of property management companies, they think they know what they're doing. They hire an on-site manager, and it turns out that on-site manager doesn't have the right synergy or the right personality. So if you can get your finger on the pulse and get involved to some extent, that's going to be extremely helpful as well.
Wow, those are some those are some gold nuggets, and I'm actually going to go back. I'm going to go back and re-listen to these. I do that all the time as I'm driving. I drive a lot, but guys, this is amazing. This is so much information in only 10 minutes. So I hope you're listening, and this, wow, I'm kind of mind blown right now, because this is something that a lot of people don't tell you. We all come into this game and we try to we hear about it. Oh yeah, pick a team, but you're kind of going deeper into that. How important, just to get deeper on the whole property management deal. You were saying how you got to choose the right property managers, the right team. You're basically vetting them, you're interviewing them. Would you agree that, because when we're underwriting, we say, you know what, we're going to do this with CapEx. We're going to do so-and-so. We have a budget of $8,000 or $10,000 a unit. We're going to fix the exterior. Would you agree that obviously you got to have a solid asset manager, but you got to have a legit property manager that that is able to help push that business plan. Would you agree that that's true, or just kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Yep, completely agree. You want to make sure that your management team has buy-in to the CapEx and the business plan that you're going to implement on the project. You know, if your property management team, your regional, your on-site manager, whoever it is, doesn't think that it's feasible to get the pro forma rents that you're looking to achieve or hit the expenses that you're looking to achieve with your CapEx budget, it's going to be really hard to implement that plan and succeed, you know, with your business plan. So I think you got to have buy-in there. You got to have a good management team. And like you said, Sergio, you got to have a good asset management plan as well. Whether that's you asset managing, or if you have an in-house team member, or if you hire a third-party asset management company, you just got to really stay on top of these management companies, because even if you hire a good third-party management, you know, if you check out once you hire them, it's very likely that they're going to let the property slip, or that they're not going to pay close attention to that property. So you want to make sure that you're visiting the property frequently. You want to make sure that you're checking in on the CapEx projects and that those are going well, that they're being done efficiently, that they're being done correctly. You want to make sure that the property is looking clean. You want to make sure that the on-site personnel has synergy. I can't tell you how many times that we visited a property and there's just not the right synergy, and we need to make a change, or we need to do some training. So make sure that, you know, you're paying close attention to that.
What's your definition on synergy? Speaking of, that's the second time you said that. Like, yeah. No, let's get it. Like, well, what do you look for in a property manager? What's synergy, so that for those of us that don't know what that means?
Yep. So if you're, you know, visiting a property, you get a gut feel if the team is working well together, or if they're having conflicts, you know, if they're disagreeing on a lot of things. You can tell pretty dang quick. And if that's happening, that's a very tough thing to fix. So if you're seeing that there's not synergy, try to dive in and figure out, you know, what is creating the issue. Is it someone on the team? Is it the performance of the property? You know, is it multiple people? And try to fix that issue as soon as you can. So really, it's a gut feel when you're dealing with these management companies and the team members.
Definitely. And out of curiosity, would you say that when you have less units, you have less quality of property management, or how is that?
Yeah, so it depends. I think the smaller the asset size, the more likely you are to get a subpar management company. And that's really speaking from experience. So our first multifamily properties, we bought an 8-unit, we bought a 20-unit, and we bought a 12-unit. And we were very limited on who would take on those properties because they were so small. And then also the fees were much larger. They were also in a smaller market, so that makes it much more tough to get a good, solid property management company. Whereas, you know, let's say you buy a 150-unit property in a good submarket, you know, you're going to have a lot of management company options, and so really you can pick the cream of the crop. So, you know, personally, we don't invest in tertiary markets anymore because of that reason. It's just a little bit more tough to find good management companies, to find good contractors, to find good on-site personnel, which you can do really well in tertiary and secondary markets, but just pay close attention to that and make sure that you have the right personnel that you can hire.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, it's all about your credibility too, right? So you want to pick the right people. And I love that you're branding everywhere, from your, you know, your hat to like your jacket, you know, Granite Towers. That is Equity Group, right? That is your company that you co-founded with your partner, Dan Bryce. Who was a professional snowboarder. That is just so crazy, making the leap. So how do you guys meet, and what is, you know, Granite Towers all about?
Yeah, great question. So we were actually childhood friends. So we met in early days of high school. We actually were sponsored by the same local snowboard shop, crazy as it sounds. And we were both trying to go professional snowboarders. So we moved out to Salt Lake City. We lived with each other for a couple of years, became really, really good friends. I ended up moving back to Minnesota, going to college, completing my bachelor's degree there. Dan obviously went on to become a professional snowboarder. I would say he was, probably top 10 in the world for a good 10, 15 years. And, his CPA had advised him, because he had a big tax liability with the income that he was making. His CPA said, "Hey, Dan, you need to start buying multifamily properties to offset your high income," which was great advice. So he started buying apartments. I was buying single families. We talked regularly, and we ended up joining forces. And we have great, personalities that mesh with each other. His strengths complement my strengths and weaknesses. So it fits really, really well. On to your second question, what is Granite Towers Equity Group about? I would say we're about building passive income for individuals that might be, too busy with their jobs or with their business. We get a ton of satisfaction out of doing that and seeing, people become financially free or build up their passive income. And then we also love giving back. So we give back a portion of our profits to a couple of nonprofits. One that's called Every Meal. So it's a organization that fills hunger gaps. So essentially when kids can't afford food or their families can't afford food, it sends them home from school with a big backpack full of food on the weekends. And then also Operation Underground Railroad, which helps with sex slavery, which is a phenomenal organization too.
Wow, that's amazing. That is so commendable, and thank you so much for giving back to the community, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, and combating human trafficking, which is a big issue nowadays, and then hunger. Those are two primary, focuses that I know will bring a lot of comfort and value to people. So thank you for that. I know that you're a proud dad, you're a proud papa, right? So talk to us about your family and what are the values that you're, kind of bringing into your children, knowing about wealth and creating a legacy.
Yep, great question. So we've involved our children quite a bit recently, especially our 10-year-old. Our 7-year-old still a little bit young. We're trying to involve her as much as we can. But for instance, when we were purchasing Grand Seasons, both Dan and myself brought our 10-year-olds to due diligence, a 2-day process where we're walking all the units, they're meeting the team, they're talking about the CapEx plan, and it was phenomenal. I mean, they learned so much through that process. We've also, helped our daughters start a little candy machine business. So they're, understanding the costs and the income and keeping track of everything, which has been really fun. And another thing that we've been doing with them too is just creating a few different buckets. So an invest bucket, a save bucket, and then a give bucket. So all the income that they're bringing in, which isn't a substantial amount, but it's something, they're splitting it up in between those 3 buckets. So that way, when they grow up, hopefully they have that background and they're really able to continue that forward. So it's been a lot of fun. And, anytime you can get your kids involved, all the better.
That's amazing, Michael. Man, I really appreciate you being out here tonight. It means a lot. As the night's kind of as we're going in, a lot of people are starting to join in. There's some people that have other calls with their mentors, but I do want to recognize you really quick because, guys, if you're watching tonight and when you watch this podcast later, when you listen, these are the type. There's a lot of operators out there. There's a lot of sponsors. There's a lot of people closing deals. They all do things, differently, and I'm telling you, the way Michael Roeder and Dan and Julie Roy's, the way they do things, the way their morals and the philanthropies they got going on, like these are the type of people that, that you want to partner up with, that you want to invest with. So I do want to appreciate you, Mike, once again for being up here and just for, just spitting some game to us, some gold nuggets, because one thing we do take, here at the Cash Flow Empire, man, we're here with no limits. There's no limits. We talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, about multifamily. We allow people to come out here and ask a lot of questions, which reminds me, guys, don't forget, raise your hand if you want to ask a question, and turn the camera on. Mike's out here. He's a very busy individual, and he's spending, his time out here with us. So, if you want to ask a question, turn the camera on and raise your hand. But yeah, Michael, thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, that was fast. Before we go to the chat, let's let Ruben Dayo jump in. What's up, man? Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for the time, Michael. I have a couple of questions for you. I guess the first one is based on your experience with underwriting, what do you think is something that's easy to miss and yet can cause material financial impact?
It's a great question, Ruben. So I'll go into a couple of different items. So first off, rent growth and vacancy rates, the smallest tweaks can make the biggest difference. So just make sure that you're dialing into multiple industry reports. We take a look at CoStar, we take a look at ALN, we take a look at Yardi, and try to blend them, because you're going to see, CoStar is going to be very conservative. Yardi is going to be a little bit more aggressive, just as an example. And so you don't necessarily want to use one or the other. Just take a look at multiple reports and make sure that you feel really comfortable. And also use your property management company as a resource. They're going to have the primary data, what's actually happening in the market. And so you want to make sure to pay close attention to what they're saying as well. Right now, another thing that's missed a lot is expense growth. Expenses have went through the roof, especially insurance and property taxes. So, if you're calculating, 1 or 2% expense increases, and you haven't accounted for, large insurance and tax increases, you might be in a world of hurt, after that first year of ownership. So just make sure that you feel really comfortable with where expenses are going. And one way you can get comfortable with that is request from the property management team what they're seeing for expenses on their other properties or their portfolio in the market. And they should be able to give you some really good detail.
Wow, that was good. That was a really good question, Ruben, man.
It was. It really was.
That was great. Shirley, you want to go real quick to the
to
the chat? Or?
One of the things that I want to put out, hey, thank you, Tony, for putting out Michael's ebook, 4 Steps to Successful Passive Investing. It's a free ebook that you can find on their site. Thank you so much, Michael, for providing us with value and your lessons learned. And then one thing that I wanted to touch up on with you is the importance of mentorship. I was also there at Brad Sumrock's event, and I saw you with your team. And how important is that for a lot of us that are wanting to break out in the industry, and some of us that are new?
Yeah, I think it's extremely important. I take a look at the properties that we bought before we had true, good, solid mentorship. And, we had a couple smaller apartment complexes that we held for about 5 years, and we literally broke even in some of the best times in the industry. And if we would have, been trained before that, we probably would have made 4x, on our money. And so not only can you make a better return, but you can alleviate a ton of mistakes. And, when you're talking about dealing with other people's money, it becomes that much more important. So I would say a mentor, regardless of what arena of real estate you're going into, is extremely, extremely important. And, a lot of mentors will charge, maybe $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. I mean, it is so easy to create that amount of value and much more, just by eliminating a couple of mistakes, in your investing career, or being able to implement some additional value add strategies. So very, very important. And we've had a mentor for, it's been 6.5 years now. And truthfully, I think we'll have one until the day that we, fully retire.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not just the amount, right? And investing in the mentorship, but investing in yourself, right? You should be a lifelong learner, because the market changes so much, especially now that you have to be really creative, which I'm going to ask you a question about that after Jonathan's question. Jonathan, what is your question?
Yeah, I'm gonna be helping you guys on the chat right now. So Melissa, she just posed a question in the chat. I kind of following all the questions right now. So you guys feel free to post your question on the chat. I'm gonna be taking care of those, right? Okay, Michael, what mistakes do you remember making in the management industry? Can you walk us through an actual situation you went through and how you fix it?
Yep. So in the management industry, so with our third-party property management companies that we've hired, one large mistake that I wish I could have changed was not firing quick enough. So we've had a couple of management companies where, we saw red flags. We tried to work through the issues. We tried to train them. We tried to switch personnel, and those red flags kept popping up. And we thought we could solve the problem. I wish we would have fired a little bit quicker and moved on to the next management company. And, you know, we vetted those property management companies. They were doing extremely well for a couple of years. And what happened was they fell apart internally. So they had some of the top execs leave, and, you know, they got the wrong people in the seats, and the management companies fell apart pretty quickly. And you see that quite often in the industry. So if you see that there's an issue and it continues to persist, you know, just make sure you get them out of there quick and get someone else in.
Thank you for that. Tony, you're up.
Yes, yes. So again, Michael, thank you. Thank you for accepting the invitation.
You're welcome.
So, I guess it's a basic question. Can you walk us through your day? Like, how do you start your day? Because I
Day
see
in the
you
life
are,
with Michael
you
Roeder.
have, you have two daughters. I have two daughters myself as well. And you know, it's tough for me. Like, it's like I don't know how to structure my day. Like, how do you start your day, and how do you finish your day?
Great question. So my days have transformed over the years. So I'll tell you kind of what I do now and what I did before. So currently, you know, I get up at about 6 o'clock a.m., have a little bit of time for meditation, and then I get breakfast ready for our girls, wake them up, get them off to school, and then I go and work out for about an hour and a half. And then I get into the office at, you know, I would say about 9:30. Work until about 5:30, check out. We put our daughters to bed, you know, around 7:30, 8 o'clock. And then I hang out with my wife for the rest of the evening. So that's been absolutely phenomenal. Now, that's not how it always was. You know, the first 5 to 6 years of my multifamily business, pretty similar to that, except what I would do is I'd put my daughters to bed, and then I would work for, you know, another 4 to 5 hours in the evening until, you know, midnight, 1 a.m. and go to bed and repeat, which was, you know, I was grinding it out. I was trying to make it happen. But at the same time, you know, my relationship with my wife suffered a little bit because of that. I think my health probably suffered a little bit because I wasn't getting the proper sleep. So if I could take it back, I probably would have changed that, tried to get a little bit more sleep, and at least checked out a few nights a week to hang out with my spouse. But, you know, right now I feel like I have a really good routine.
Wow. Thank you. Because that's exactly what's happening to me. It's like I'm working until like 1 in the morning, you know, and it's like it's hurting my relationship with my wife. So yeah, thank you. I gotta work on that. Thank you.
You bet. And another thing that we've implemented, you know, over the last 6 months is just bi-weekly date nights for my spouse and I, or in the afternoon. And we just make it a point to make that happen. We also do one-on-one dates with our daughters every so often, which is phenomenal as well. So anything that you can do, you know, to put that in your calendar and adhere to it, you know, family is everything. So I think it's super important.
Nice.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's wonderful. And it's good, because I was gonna say, hey, is there any such thing as balance? But I think you're being very intentional about the importance time is for you and your family, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. When everything leaves and everything's gone, that's all you're going to have. And so we thank you for guiding us and providing us your perspective on that. And so, quick question about the market, right? As you know, you more than anything, more than us, you know how the rates have been skyrocketing and all this craziness. How creative have you been with selecting your property and dealing with all these rates, and how are you able to solidify the rates that you're getting for your deals?
Yeah, great question. So it's become more and more tough to land, you know, great projects that make sense financially right now with where the interest rates have went. You know, you're seeing a pretty massive gap for the most part between what sellers are willing to sell a property for and what buyers can buy them for. And, sellers still have that price stuck in their head that they could have gotten a year ago. For the values, we've seen values come down, anywhere in between 10 to 20% on average, when we're looking at what we're offering on properties. And then as far as being creative, right now we're placing fixed rate debt, anywhere in between 5 to 10-year terms. So that way we can hold through this economic downturn and not be stressed and mitigate risk, which is working really well for us. Looking back over the last few years, I think that's one modification I would have made, is just, not placed bridge debt on deals. And we're doing well on those deals. We're well capitalized. We'll be able to hold through the downturn. But, those are the properties that are creating stress right now. So if you can get a fixed rate loan, or, artificially fix rate a bridge loan, I would say by all means do it.
Amazing, guys. Amazing. Let's put some fire in the chat. I think Michael's been dropping some bombs.
Some gems.
on
He's been dropping gems.
I've learned so much in these last 30 minutes. I'm like locked in, and I see the people, everybody, I see some people taking notes, asking amazing questions. And guys, once again, raise your hand if you want to ask Michael a question. We'll bring you on stage. Turn your camera on. Don't be rude. But really quick, we're going to hit the chat really quick. We have Carlos Penagos. He said, how much extra do you budget for your CapEx for any unforeseen expenses?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we usually come in pretty heavy with our CapEx budget. We'll typically, let's say we have a $2 million CapEx budget. We feel very confident in those numbers because we've gotten some bids from our contractors, or had our contractor walk the property. But typically we'll factor in another 10 to 20% as a variance as well, just in case. And what we've been doing recently is we have all of our CapEx dollars as unfinanced. So they're sitting in our account ready to go. We can make audibles or call audibles, make changes. We don't have to deal with the lender. A lot of times when you finance the rehab with the lender, typically you have to adhere to their schedule. So let's say you financed for 50 carports, and all of a sudden you get 6 months in and you find out, hey, these carports really aren't going to make us much. The tenants don't want it. The lender might require you to still put those carports in, even though it's not going to create a lot of value. Whereas if you have unfinanced rehab, you can call any audible that you'd like.
Wow, that was actually really good. Carlo, did we got it squared away? It looks like he's shaking his head. We're going to go next to, before we go to Gabriel, we'll go to Gideon Valentin. As you made the leap from single units to 90 units, which computer programs did you use to manage rental income, paying bills, leases, and evictions? And then I guess there's a follow-up. Does the property management company handle that now?
Yeah, so they've always handled that. On our smaller multifamily, the larger multifamily, the third-party property management company manages that. So Resman is, one of the systems that we utilize, but we have quite a few different systems depending upon the management company that manages it. Now, when it was just my single family rentals, it was literally just an Excel spreadsheet. So very, very simple.
Nice. And just to turn it over really quick before I get to Shirley, we'll go ahead and get Gabrielle. Gabrielle, welcome. I love Gabrielle. She's always very active. She comes every Tuesday, asks a lot of questions, great questions too, by the way. So I appreciate the love every Tuesday, Gabrielle. Go ahead.
Of course, I love you guys. Thank you. I have a question. I wanted to know, how do you interview and pick the right management team? And then earlier too, on the management issue that you say you have, what's an example of a management issue?
Yep, great question. So how do we pick or interview the right management team? So we have a list of questions that we ask our management team when we're vetting them out. And, if you guys want that list, send me over an email and I'd be happy to provide it. My email is mike@granitetowersequitygroup.com. I'd be happy to provide that. But, a few questions would be, how many people do you have on your marketing and your accounting team? What type of system do you utilize? How many properties is the regional manager overseeing, and how many units? How often do they visit the property? When they're traveling to these properties, do they offload the expenses on you, or do they take care of that in-house? There's literally 20 or 30 top questions that we ask. So send over that email and I'll get you that list. And then second question, what type of issues that we've had with management companies where we've had to fire them? One big one has been accounting. So if they can't get their accounting straight, that can become a major issue, not just for the financial statements, but also if they can't pay the vendors properly, you start to lose vendors, you get vendors that are really angry with you, and it starts to become a bigger issue where you can't get contractors or vendors to come out and fix the property or do the landscaping or do the turns. So accounting has been a big one. Also just, communication. Some management companies are too busy. They have their staff too overloaded. And if you're seeing that, communication is subpar and they're getting back to you 2, 3, 4 days later, that's a big issue. And when you call the referrals that they give you, ask those referrals how their communication is. Also ask them, if anything could change, if you could change one thing about this management company, what would it be? So that way you're not painting a negative picture. You're just saying, hey, what would you change? And they're gonna bring out the truth when you ask that question.
Thank you, Gabrielle, for that wonderful question. And thank you for the golden nuggets, Michael. You're killing it. If you guys are getting value out of this, please, please, please send up those fires on the chat. It seems like you have a tremendous processes in your company. So tell us a little bit about that. What are the key aspects that we need to, have in place when we're putting this our businesses together?
Yep. So I think it depends on your size. How many units you have, if you're just starting out or if you're 3, 4, 5 years into the mix. But I can share a little bit about what our process looks like today. So typically we have an analyst that analyzes our deal, but before it gets to the analyst, we also have a virtual assistant that's entering all the numbers, taking a look at the comps online, doing some of the legwork behind the scenes. So once it gets to Dan and I, when we're underwriting a deal, it's went through 2 filters, so to speak, which is, very, very helpful. We also have a task management system. Because we have an in-house team, we need to manage the tasks that we offload on them. And so that has been tremendous. It allows us to make sure that those tasks are being completed and they're being completed in an efficient manner. Now, when you're first starting out, it's probably going to be you, maybe your business partner. You're probably not going to have an in-house asset manager or a marketing team member or an analyst. So it's going to be very simplified, but I would still say any systems that you can set up when you're first starting out, all the better. Pretend like you're operating with 10,000 units. And if you can, start your business with that mindset, it's going to be so much easier to scale.
Absolutely. Always 10X. That'll get you going on your goals. So that's a good one right there. And VAs are super helpful. So I know once you get to a certain point, you got to have them. I have a question from David and Nico. What do you mean with artificial bridge loan?
Yep. So I think what he's referring to is artificially fixing a bridge loan. So say you have a 5-year bridge loan and, the loan is going to come due in 5 years and it has a floating rate. You can buy what's called a rate cap. To cap the interest rate. Now, looking back from our experience, what I'd do if I was going to artificially fix a floating rate product, I would buy a longer interest rate cap. So let's say you have a 5-year loan, instead of buying a 2-year interest rate cap, maybe buy a 3, 4, or 5-year interest rate cap. So that way you're completely or close to completely mitigating that risk. It's going to be very, very expensive, but it is an option. And then also factor in the full fluctuation of the interest rate. So if you're buying let's say a 1% strike rate cap, meaning that the interest rate can go up 1%, factor into your underwriting that it's going to go up that full 1%, because you just don't know what's going to happen going into the future. So hopefully that explains it. It gets a little bit into the weeds, a little bit complicated, but hopefully that answers your question.
Michael, you're killing it, man. I love it. I love this call. And I'm sure everybody does too. Everybody's just kind of showing a lot of love in the chat. You're obviously you've done a lot of things. You've done some full cycles. I'm sure everybody in here is like, man, I would love to get to that point one day. You've been in the game for a while, a couple years, and what is something that you would kind of go back? Like, a lot of us are new, right? A lot of us have been in this industry. We're still not GPs or co-GPs, but we're kind of working our way that way, right? What would you go back and tell yourself? You've obviously made some mistakes. No losses, but lessons, right? No, the L's are not the losses, but they're lessons learned. What would you go back and tell yourself, your first year starting in this industry?
Yeah, so a couple big learning lessons. First off, pay close attention to the market that you're investing in, not just the spreadsheet that you've punched for the deal. For instance, we had a deal in New Mexico that we purchased. The returns looked phenomenal, over 100% over a 5-year period. I think the cash flow is 9%. It was tied to the oil market. Obviously, during COVID, oil went negative. Everyone left the city. We had major vacancy problems, major delinquency problems. We still have that property today, and luckily it's turning around and we should be able to make a really good return for our investors. But that property has caused an unbelievable amount of sleepless nights, just a lot of stress. And so if I could go back, focus on markets that have great population growth, that have great business growth, that are very diversified, as far as the jobs go and the employers go. And if you can buy in a market like that in a great submarket, man, you're just going to have so much wind at your sail, compared to just, trying to battle the force winds, coming at you. So that was one big learning lesson. Another learning lesson was just to skip the small stuff. The 8 unit that we bought, the 20 unit that we bought, the 12 unit that we bought. It's all based on scatter management. So you don't have an on-site manager on the property. So it's very hard to manage. And plus, like I said, you get subpar management companies. It's hard to get contractors to do the work. If you need to replace the roof, it eats up the cash flow for years. So there's just a lot of issues that come with those smaller properties.
And I think we all get emotional at first because we're just starting. We're on like some broker's list. He's just, flooding your email, and you're like, oh my God, I got a deal. And I think we think that, holy crap, he's thinking about me and me only. Let me underwrite this deal. This is the one, without even kind of just going through those market analysis, like you said. And if you look in the chat, Julie Roy, she commented some of the things that Michael said. So I'm gonna go heart that real quick. But you heard Michael say it himself, guys. I mean, stay away from the 20 units, the 10 units, the 8 units. I think we all get kind of discouraged because it's not the 150, it's not the 200 that they're telling us that we can buy at these events, and they're boosting our egos and saying we can do it. But some of us are like, what? That's too much. Let me just start with an 8 unit. Let me start with the 10 unit. I mean, if there was something that, obviously Michael said if he can go back and change that, he would. So guys, let's run with that. Let's run with that information and let's just go a little bigger. Sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And you had a really good
Mike.
point. You had a really good point, Sergio, is, don't get emotionally attached. And if you're emotionally attached to the deal, have someone take a look at the deal that's not emotionally attached to it, because you might have your blinders on. You might love this asset. You visited it. It's a great location, but you might be missing something. So get someone, a second or third set of eyes on the property, and have them dive in a little bit and see what you're missing.
Absolutely. Just somebody neutral that can give you really the real deal, the real honest truth on things that we might not be seeing. And I wanted to keep harping on the location and the market, right? I know Julie put some insightful information there of criteria that you need to be looking at when finding a property. So I see that you're invested in Alabama, I believe Wisconsin, Minnesota, Tennessee, Texas. So what makes those areas so special aside from the other ones that are boosting as well?
Yep. So that's a great question. Right now, we're just focused on Dallas, Fort Worth, and Nashville. And that's, been altered over time. When we first got into the industry, we were buying properties all over the place. And that was a mistake, in my opinion. You can do well in all these different markets, but once you grow your portfolio, you're flying all over the place. So it's not efficient with your time. Plus, you're managing multiple management companies, which gets a little bit tough. And then you're also having to tune in to, all the happenings in that local submarket. So personally, I would say try to focus on one market, build that out, and you'll feel when it's the right time to explore another market. But we take a look at population growth, we take a look at job growth, we take a look at the amount of supply coming online, which very, very important, especially for A-class properties if you're buying A-class, but even for B and C, it makes a difference. Make sure to take a look at what type of employers are there. So how diversified is the employment base? Very, very important as well. And then the submarket, very, very important. Take a look at what's located near the property. What kind of development is going on near the property as well. How easy is it to access the property? How visible is the property? There's so many things that you can tune into that can make a world of a difference.
Wow, you really have to do your research. You have to become great at doing area research. That's just the bottom line. That's a project management thing all on its own. So thank you for that. Kedney, sorry if I mispronounced your name, but you have a question?
All right. So when it comes to the market, when you're looking for the information on the market in your area, who do you get it from, or where do you get it from?
Yeah, great question. So a couple of resources that we utilize. We do have a CoStar membership. So we're able to run a CoStar report, which is helpful. We take a look at ALN, we take a look at Yardi. We'll also pull industry reports from the big brokerages, which they put together some really good reports that are free. So Marcus and Millichap, CBRE, Northmark, Newmark, most of these large brokerages put together a really good multifamily report, usually every quarter. And so that can give you a substantial amount of information as well. And then also calling the properties. So if you have a property that you're looking at, go ahead and call the competitive properties, ask them a ton of questions like you're a prospective tenant. And then at the end of the call, ask them what their occupancy is. Usually they'll be pretty open and you can get a good feel what the occupancy is like in that direct submarket. So those are a few resources that we utilize.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Wow, you're just dropping all of the answers tonight. You're giving everybody the answers to the test. I kid you not. And I'm telling you guys, learn how to save the chats because Julie is dropping gems on the chats. She's also giving you the answers to the test. So if you can save this chat, please do so. I believe Hector had a question. If not, we can keep rolling.
And make sure to get to know Julie Roy. She is a great resource,
amazing,
great person. So I love seeing that she's so active in the chat. That's amazing.
Yes,
actually,
absolutely.
Michael,
go ahead.
How you guys doing? Thank you for the time, Michael. Where it will be the activities for someone that is new? Where it will be the activities for 90 days? You think it will be for someone that is starting and it is kind of lost on where to start?
Yep, great question. So activities that you could do in your first 90 days when you're jumping into multifamily, truthfully, I would say get educated. So consume as many podcasts, as many audiobooks, as many books as possible. And if you guys need some recommendations on that, again, shoot me an email, mike@granitetowersequitygroup.com. I have a list of great resources for people that are looking to get started. I would also say, try to team up with someone that has some experience. Even if you're working for free and you're doing some of the asset management, or you're raising some capital for them, or providing some sort of value, if you can get on board with a general partner that has some experience and just listen into the management calls, see how they market the deal when they're raising capital, that is going to be so valuable to you. We've brought on a handful of individuals like that, and they have seen a lot of success since they came on board with us on their first deal. So that would be another thing to really search out. And then also communicate what you're looking to do and the type of value that you're looking to add. So when you're talking to other general partners, tell them exactly what you're looking for and what kind of value you can add. Because if you don't tell them that, they're never going to know, and they're not going to think of you, when they land their next deal.
Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
All right. So I got another question here in the chat from Michelle. What task managers do you use? And I have a second question after that from Herbema. Could you please elaborate on the tasks that you delegate to your VA, virtual assistant?
Yep, great question. So we use Monday.com for our task management software. There's quite a few of them out there that's worked very, very well for us. And then some of the tasks that we offload to our VA, first off, punching in all the numbers on the analyzer when we're analyzing a deal. We also outsource all of our podcast editing. We have a podcast. It's called the Keeping It Real Estate Show. So the editing, lining up guests, getting us on other people's podcasts. We have them doing a lot of fact checking as well. So we have a weekly call spreadsheet where the management team is entering in, the lease trade out. So what the new leases are signed for, the date, the renewal dates, how much the renewals are signed for, the financials, how much they're depositing into the accounts. And we have our VA going through the management software and verifying all that information, because the on-site manager, they can enter in whatever numbers they want. You need to make sure that you're verifying that. So those are a few tasks that we outsource to our VAs.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Michael. And, just kind of want to go ahead and jump into something that's not necessarily syndication in real estate, but more of a mindset thing, right? Because this has a lot to do with how we think of ourselves and our success. How do you think, what's the role that mindset plays into all of this and how important it is?
Yeah, I think mindset is massive. My family and I have done quite a few Tony Robbins events, which he's huge into mindset. Obviously, we brought our 10-year-old last fall. We're going to do it again with her this fall. But mindset is everything. I mean, I even think about myself. I have a really good mindset, but thinking about buying a 700 unit property or something like that, I have a little bit of a mind block there, which is okay. But if you don't believe that you can do it, it's very likely that you're not going to make it happen. So I would say anything that you can do to further your mindset, whether that's reading books or going to seminars or surrounding yourself with people that have growth mindsets or bigger mindsets than yourself, it's going to make a massive difference in what type of success you see and probably how much happiness and how your personal family life is and whatnot as well.
1000%. Thank you for that. Jonathan?
Yes, Michael. As you know, multifamily is a team sport, right? So you pretty much, when you go to try these big properties, it's gonna be really hard to do it yourself, right? So you need to partner up with people. So what is the process actually? How do you vet your partners, or how you want to walk us through the process before you decide to partner up with somebody?
Yep, great question. So for us, it's all about the relationship that we've created with that person and our gut feel. Dan and I are very, very big into selecting the right partners that are ethical, that can solve problems and aren't going to blow up when there's an issue. In the multifamily industry, there's always going to be issues. I mean, you have hundreds or thousands of tenants. There's going to be fires. There's going to be, possibly murders. There's going to be issues with the financials every once in a while, issues with CapEx projects. It's just bound to happen. So you want to make sure that you choose a partner that has a level head and that can work through issues, with you. So for us, it's finding people with, fairly similar personalities that are easygoing, that add some value to the projects and that do what they say they're going to do as well.
Super important, especially because it's a marriage, right? We always say that it is a marriage with our partners and with our investors, right? And so you all have to be on the same page. Definitely, guys, if you have any other questions, please put it in the chat or raise your hands, because we're almost reaching the top of the hour. Okay, and then we're going into our breakout room. So Jonathan, go ahead.
Yes, probably Michael, you get this question a lot, right? But I would like to get your point of view, or what is the market? What is going to happen with the market? What is your opinion with the market coming for the next, I don't know, 6 or 12 months?
Yeah, great question, Jonathan. So it's hard to have that crystal ball. I think that there likely will be another, rate increase or two, and then they'll probably lay off. I don't know when they're going to cut rates. Inflation is still pretty high. A lot of people are saying, yeah, they're going to cut rates towards the end of this year or going into next year. We're not counting on that. I would rather, set myself up for success rather than hope for success. I do think that when they do cut interest rates, which it'll happen eventually because the economy will crack, that there's going to be a flood of dollars that flood back into the market from institutional investors as well as individual investors. And I think that, along with the interest rates dropping so people can pay more money, you're going to see cap rates compress. You're going to see values go up quite quickly. Again, I don't know when that's going to happen. I think, for us, we're planning on it being at least a few years just in case. And then as far as the economy goes, I think unemployment will likely go up over the next year or two. I don't know by how much. I also think that it's becoming a renter nation. So what are we at? 33% renters right now. I think that's going to grow by a couple percentage points, over the next couple of years, which is really, really good for apartment investing. And I think there's a shortage of supply as well. Some submarkets is a good amount of supply coming online because it got backed up during COVID. But overall, we have a major shortage, of B and C class properties. So if you can get into that niche, I think it's a great niche to be in.
Wonderful, thank you. That is the magical question everybody's asking these days, of course. But it's great to know from an insider that has, the insights and the experience to provide us with your perspective. And so, one of the things that I want to ask you at the end is where we can find you, but also you have this awesome podcast, which I listened to, the one that you were interviewing Dawn Keller.
Yeah.
And there was a part in there where she was mentioning that she likes unique deals where we're not going into the business just to up the rent, right? We want to create value, right, to gain cash flow. So can you talk to us a little bit about your takeaways from that, and what are those value that we can put into the property?
Yeah, great question. So that was actually Dan that interviewed Dawn Keller. I haven't listened to that one yet, but I think there's multiple different avenues that you can take when you take over a property instead of just pushing the rent. So you can control expenses, which is always an option. You can boost the actual rents on the units. You can add additional other income. You can increase the curb appeal and the actual community as well. So that's something that's big with us, is when we get into these properties, we want to make sure that we're putting on community events, that we have a great vibe in the office, so that way people want to live at the asset. That can be massive as well, and that can really help your retention rate as well. So it's not just pushing the rents. It's, there's multiple different aspects that you need to pay attention to, and it makes it a lot of fun. If you can get a little bit creative, it's really, really enjoyable.
Absolutely. It's all about creativity. And thank you for that. That was really insightful, because it gave me some aha moments with like energy saving things that you can implement into your property. So that's really awesome. And so definitely, if nobody else has any questions, definitely we want to tell you, Michael, thank you so much for your time. I mean, I know you're super busy, but thank you for donating your time, and tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, so you can go to our website, which is Granite Towers Equity Group.com. Fill out the contact us form on there, and we'll make sure that we get you added to our database. We'll send you over a link so that way we can jump onto a call personally, answer any questions that you have. Like what was posted earlier, we do have that free ebook there as well. And then also, if you sign up, on our contact us page, we're just finishing building out a passive investing tracker. Really nice tracker. So we'll send that over to you as well. And then I threw my email in the chat box as well. So feel free to shoot me an email. We're always an open book as well.
Absolutely. So I'm sure you're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all the platforms. So
Correct.
guys, you know, be ready to just follow Granite Towers Equity Group. So amazing. And then the philanthropy stuff that they're doing and just giving back and really providing value to, you know, their investors and the general population. It's amazing and commendable. Thank you so much, Michael, for being with us tonight. Definitely, we want to reconnect with you very soon.
Most definitely. Well, I appreciate you having me on. And I mean, what a great community that you've built. I appreciate everyone being on here and for you guys inviting me on here. It's been
Awesome.
an absolute blast.
Michael, thank you so much. And once again, everybody, thanks for tuning in to the Cash Flow Empire every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. So thanks again, Michael. Everybody just give it a clap to Michael. Let's put some woohoos in the chat, some fires, some claps, some fist pumps if you're in here.
Thank you so much, man. Everyone has been so complimentary and just, yeah, I appreciate it.